Let's talk now to Kate Ryabchiy. I hope I got that right. She's former head of Ukrainian diaspora in South Africa and joins us virtually. Good morning to you, Kate. It's good to have you on the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, you're Ukrainian, so maybe my very first question will be, what's your feeling about what's going on in your homeland? Obviously, it's tragic, and you probably have people there.
Thank you for your question. Yes, the feeling is absolutely horrendous. We are under immense pressure, individually wise, community wise. It doesn't matter that you're 1,000 miles away from home. You're still feeling that sorrow, sadness, and depressive feelings, really, and really struggling to cope with the everyday events that are occurring in Ukraine. So the major point is, it doesn't matter how long, how far away you're from home, you're always feeling the pain. What is at pain is your heart. It's Ukraine. Ukraine is at pain.
Are you able to speak to friends, family members, and so on back home? And if so, what are they telling you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm in a regular communication to my relatives. Some of my relatives are on the occupied territories. I cannot mention directly at this particular moment on which territories they are to not undermine their security. I'm in a constant contact with them. Sometimes the communication breaks away due to the it's a known fact that Russia is trying to dismantle the communication systems on those territories. Some of my relatives have had an incredible, wonderful opportunities, experiencing a lot of aid and help, and we're traveling from those territories, finally left these territories. Their experiences were really horrifying. From what I've heard and I've listened to, there were cases where somebody got murdered right in front of their house, and my family members could not pick up that person for weeks because they were afraid to leave their apartment building. Finally, there are reports of people disappearing, of rapes, different kinds of assaults, criminal really. The relatives that have left had an opportunity to leave these territories, struggled immensely during the period of their travel. For example, one of the columns got shot, and my relatives' children were incredibly scared, frightened. The kids were screaming during the shootings. They afterwards they had a period of time where they were staying over at some guest house for a week or so on the territory that is under the control of the Ukrainian forces, and then they finally had the opportunity to leave the country. Other relatives left to other cities in Ukraine, and they reached those cities and they were shelled there. So it's a truly horrible experience. We are really worried. Every day is a war zone. It doesn't matter where you are. For us personally here, for them, I cannot even, it's unimaginable the feelings that they're feeling now.
You are on the African continent, and as you say, regardless of where you are in the world, this is a grim picture you have painted, and the situation will reach you wherever you are. But are you disappointed in the fact that it does seem as if the continent where you currently are seems to have largely ignored what is going on in your homeland?
That's an interesting question. First of all, being Ukrainian South African and having been lived in Africa almost 2/3 of my life, I hear and I understand the sentiments that are coming from and where the place where it comes from and the justification for them on the African continent. I understand in depth the African experience. I fully sympathize with it. I, as personally, as a research analyst in policy and security, I may not, on the professional level, agree with some of these sentiments and feelings and opinions due to the matter that I, as a research analyst, prefer to operate with facts, with the real knowledge. But at the same time, you have to be very careful and keep in mind the African experience, and understanding the sentiment that is experienced here in terms of experience of the African continent with Western countries. So I may not agree on some points factually, but I do respect I treat it with respect, the understanding of Africa, because this history, these experiences, they must be taken very carefully into consideration.
But then in that case, on the other hand, you must be quite pleased, I wouldn't say happy, you must be quite heartened with the Western response, that is the European and the United States response to what is going on, backing your homeland with money and with weapons to defend itself.
Absolutely, yes. I am pleased with this response. Despite the efforts of the Russian Federation, the NATO and G7 are stronger than ever. The recent meetings, they demonstrated this fact. Ukraine receives a lot of help. We are very grateful from our Western allies, and not only Western allies. It's very important to us, considering the history of Ukraine, considering the geopolitical situation. It's a very important step for us. And you have to always be mindful of the history. Sometimes in various countries, people maybe perhaps not fully comprehend the deep and rich history of Ukraine. And as I recently listened to the interesting interview by the great grandson of the greatest reformers Russia ever had, Pyotr Stolypin, who was prime minister in the 1911. And he directly stated in his interview to the Voice of America that it might sound harsh at the moment, but Russia has no history. What we have in our hands is deep and rich history of Ukraine, where actually most of the Russia derives from. And we have, on the other hand, mythologization of history. So what we are at this particular moment in time also dealing with all of these arguments that Russia has a right, that they acted accordingly because they have special rights to Ukraine. We have a mythologization. We are living at the times of mythologization of history, and Ukraine really is the country that needs support now. We are very grateful for this, and that's how the situation at the current moment.
I cannot let you go without asking you about moves to make peace. There are those who have pointed out that under no circumstance will Ukraine ever agree to give up any part of its territory in return for peace. But then on the other hand, the Russians, as you've just identified, say that they feel they have special rights in Ukraine. What do you see? And now I'm talking to the research and development part of you, not the Ukrainian national part of you, to say, what do you see as a viable way out of this? Because ultimately, peace is what everybody wants.
Absolutely. We're living the time of the difficult times of bellicosity, banditry, really, the aggressiveness, but peace comes at the price. And for Ukraine, in the particular situation today, this price is heavy, this price is expensive, but the peace will only come in the event of us winning this war. I'm confident in our security services. I'm confident in our military. They're doing a fantastic job right now at the front. Our peace, unfortunately, due to the many years of making alternative choices, due to our history of learning, we learn for the past many years after the fall of the Soviet Union, we are learning a lot. And due to this, we are paying this heavy price now. And the only peace we can think of, imagine, is only if we win this war. The trading of the territories is non-negotiable. The sovereignty of Ukraine is proclaimed in the constitution of Ukraine. The territorial integrity is key. We live at the time when we cannot negotiate our territorial integrity. Here come the NATO allies. It's very important to us. It's understandable also that at this particular moment, we might not be, not today, tomorrow, this weekend, we might not be joining NATO soon, but it's going to be a laborious, strenuous process for us working on it. And eventually, I think we will prevail, we will overcome, not today, but in a matter of perhaps a year or years. And we have to win this war. To simply put it, we have to win this war. And winning comes with defending our territorial integrity and returning all the land that we had prior to even 2014.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Kate, for your time this morning and for your perspective on the program. Kate Ryabchiy is former head of Ukrainian diaspora in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.